Your emotions, you're concerned about that more than the rest of the world. Everybody else will get a pedestal. They'll go ahead and get megaphones and everything else to shout how they feel about something. And they want their preferences and their feelings to be considered above yours. Assalamu alaikum, peace. I'm Coach Nazir, one of the founders of Outstanding Personal Relationships, as well as co-author of Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored. Now, for those of you who don't know, I practice polygyny. I've been married to Coach Fatimah now for over 26 years and Coach Nyla for over 11. Because I have multiple wives. And I want to talk about something when it comes to transitioning. And I've spoken about, I guess it's not just transitioning, but it's a real leadership issue and challenge that men face. And think about it. I mean, when was the last time you go to another man to really find out how to really practice polygyny in a fashion where it's effective? All right. Sadly, I had to go through what a lot of men go through when they first practice polygyny, because in our society, polygyny is something that's frowned upon. And that method that I was practicing was kind of trial and error method. Thankfully, I had some mentors that really equipped me with a number of different skills prior to, but there wasn't much out there. So I'm gonna let you know about 3 specific things. I'm going to label them right up front so we know what they are, and also so I can remember them as we go through this. I'm trying to keep this video as succinct as possible. So the first I'm going to talk about is emotions. The second I'm going to talk about is children. The third is perspective. So emotions, children, and perspective. All right. Now I'm going to start here. When it comes to polygyny, what you're going to hear is that when a man, you're going to hear a lot of myths that when a man wants to marry another wife, it's for a plethora of reasons, usually by people who don't possess the XY chromosome, trying to explain away or rationalize why a man would choose to marry more than one wife. And if you want to find out why I chose to do so, feel free to search the video here. It's called, why I, as a happily married man of 15 years, chose to marry again. But that's not the topic of today. I'm going to talk about emotions. And the reason goes into nobody really cares about your emotions, bro. All right. Very few, I should say. Very few care about your emotions, meaning your perspective of the matter. So you hear things like, oh, well, it causes your first wife pain, or there's going to be this challenge, and you know how devastating the feeling and the trust and betrayal, all of this stuff. And it's not going to be related to you whatsoever. Please allow me to interrupt myself. All right. I don't normally like to do that, but I know that far too many people have been contacting me asking, you know what, who trains husbands? Who trains young men that want to become men of value or become kings? Who's really leading that example, right? And I remember asking the same thing prior to really getting involved in this industry, if you will. But I do want to let you know, just in case you don't, that I created a program called the Kings and Kingdoms program. It's a 6-week intensive online course for those either who are raising sons and they want them to be kings. All right, they want to raise them to be men of value. They want to really allow them to rise above the trivial many and become that select few. So that's really who it's designed for, whether you're married, intend on practicing polygyny or not, or if you're single, it doesn't really matter. I mean, teenage years, about 16 and above, you can really get some benefit. Younger than 16, this may not be the program for you, but I do want to let you know that a program is available. The links are in the description, or you can just simply go to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com/kings and kingdoms to get those details. So let me let you get back to me. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. You are an afterthought, if that at all. So understanding how to manage your emotions is important. All right, because your needs are also important. Your wants are also important. That doesn't mean all of them have to necessarily be fulfilled. But you must be aware that you are the only person, most likely, that is going to give any type of concern to your voice. All right. But the person that should hear that, you should be able to speak with. And I know I'm saying should, because I don't like when people should all over themselves. I should do this, should have did that, shoulda. All right. We're adults. The person that you should be able to speak with is your wife. If you practice monogamy, it's your wife. Your relationship, that's your wife, right? So you should be able to speak with her about it. Now, again, there's a whole plethora of things that happen, whether or not you're able to speak to your wife about polygyny, your desire for it, or wanting to practice it, or thinking about it, or what, try to at least get what her opinion is on about it, whatever it may be. You should be able to have open, honest conversations about it, because this, should be your closest confidant and friend. But again, this topic in particular can cause a lot of blowback. It can be a lot of drama, a lot of emotions attached to it. There are a whole lot of things that can be uncovered when it comes to polygyny in particular that aren't even related to polygyny. So prayerfully, you've had conversations prior to getting married, or at least early in marriage, now that relationship is secure, that you are able to deal with any type of traumas, or maybe probably unhealed traumas that may have followed. All right, because many times people get involved in relationships and in marriages that they don't know why a person is acting a certain way, or feeling a certain way, or defensive, or off, or whatever it may be. And it may not necessarily be rooted with you as an individual, your particular relationship. They could be things from the past. But again, your emotions, understand, very few people care. They're not going to ask you your opinion, or, well, what about your pain if you don't feel this? Or what if, your wife is heavily against this or threatens this, or so on and so forth, and They're caring about hers, of course, no doubt. And of course, men haven't had the space to really express their emotions like that. And that's not how we normally do it anyway. All right, we don't emote and go talk to a circle of brothers and friends and talk about ourselves and have this big old support group and support circle. That's not even necessarily healthy for our testosterone levels. All right, we usually go internal, try to find solutions individually. But that one individual you should be able to go to is that person that you're married to speak with. Now, if she's not up for discussion or mature enough or approachable, that could be a challenge where you have to work towards that. But I'm just letting you know, transition wise, or even want to speak about it prior to, which of course is best practice. But sometimes that doesn't happen. You have to talk about it afterwards. Nevertheless, your emotions, you're concerned about that more than the rest of the world. Everybody else will get a pedestal. They'll go ahead and get megaphones and everything else to shout how they feel about something. And they want their preferences and their feelings to be considered above yours. Understand, you have yours. You got a right to them. You can express them. It'd be best to express prior to really making any moves to at least test the waters and find out. That's number one. Number two, and again, these things go right back to the core of leadership. Number two is children. So the question is like, you know what? Okay, so now you're married. So here's the transitioning part. So you're married in polygyny and you have children. So when do you let your children meet your additional wife, your second wife, or your subsequent wife, or your other wife? When do you let them do that? Especially if your wives aren't getting along, it's co-wives. One may be jealous of the other, or they both might be jealous of each other, or just not, it's a hostile environment, but these are your children. All right, when do you let them meet the other wife? Or if you have children, or more children, with your second wife, for example, then when do these children get to meet, or when do they go to the other house? This is a common question. This goes back to your leadership. All right, this goes back to your leadership abilities. We have to recognize as men, we're supposed to be the leaders of our household, and we must demonstrate. This means people should be able to see it. So when they say these old adages like actions speak louder than words, this is true. Say talk is cheap, absolutely true. But you're able to demonstrate your value. All right, by demonstrating your value, that means you are exerting your personal power. And I know I talk about the 3 Ps and what men must do and so on in different trainings, and I have a course on it, but that's not the point. As a man, we demonstrate our value. We demonstrate our leadership ability. And as a man, you have children with your XXXY chromosomes. These are your children. You have to make the decision what's best for the family, not best for someone else's opinion or someone else's emotion. See, number one, I talked about, right? But your siblings have a right to know each other. And as the man, you should be facilitating and coordinating your children meeting and knowing each other while you're working on your emotional aptitude or ability to be able to deal with conflicting emotions either of your wives may have. That's important. Now, when to go about it, whether they're young and, 2 and 3 months old, or when they get older, 1 or 2, that's up to you. Or if they're already older teenagers on one hand and, they may want to meet or may not want to meet, you can respect that either way it goes. But that door should be open and it should be led by you making that decision, because situations don't always stay the same. And I talk about this, and my wives and I speak about it now with outstanding personal relationships, because, again, I say don't compare our chapter 11 with your chapter 1, your chapter 2 or 3. It took a while to get here because, again, we're on that trial and error method. But as the man, as the leader, as the imam, right, you have to make the best decisions that you can at that time. So what's the next best right decision for your family? You do not want to be the one that facilitates a separation of the siblings because you weren't man enough to just go ahead and deal with any other blowback, argument, all kind of other stuff by letting your children play together. You don't want them to grow up and think less of you as a man, as a father, because you kept them away from their siblings. Now, it's different if things are out of your control. But what you can control is your ability to try to navigate that and fight for that. All right. That's number 2. Again, that's leadership and increasing your influence. Now, the third one is perceptions. Think about this. When we teach our children, we want to try to raise children to have high self-esteem, right? High self-confidence. And what do we tell them to do? You know what? Speak highly of yourself. Say, you look good. You like how you look. You like how you feel. You love yourself. All these different things, right? And when you see someone else being praised, let's say you're talking about LeBron James, right? And again, this is just somebody that's in the game right now. I don't still, I'm from the MJ generation, so I still believe MJ. But nevertheless, that's not the point of discussion. Let me not go off on a tangent. But you hear someone praising LeBron, running the stats down, talking about his defensive skills, talking about how he's raised different teams up. He's raised the morale of the squad, or he's clutch and everything else, right? When you hear that, you're like, that's admirable. That's that praise for another person. We respect that. But now imagine LeBron James saying, listen, I'm clutch. This is what I did over here in Cleveland. This is what I did in Miami. This is what I want to do for LA. This is blah, blah, blah. Here are my stats. Check them. That sounds a lot like ego, doesn't it? But it really depends on your perception. Because when you talk to your child, the same child that you said, be proud of yourself. You look good. You feel good. You smell good. Right? You're already blessed just by being here. You already won that journey against billions by fertilizing that egg. Right? So, you made it. You're already a champion, even though you don't know it. And in my life, I had mentors that saw more of me than I believed in myself. They believed more of me than I believed in myself. So I had to borrow their belief. Similarly, our children will do these things. We set high expectations and standards for them, and we praise them and we encourage them, and they go along that path. They feel, I'm good enough to do this. I might not know how, but I can figure this out because I believe I have the ability to do so. Makes sense, doesn't it? But what if you're talking to your child and it's like, hey, you know what? How you doing in basketball? How you doing in your grades? How you doing with communicating with the teacher that you didn't like, or whatever it may be, right? And they say, you know what? I'm doing excellent. I've studied this and I've done this and I feel this way and I'm great. I'm a great student. I'm a great person. You're like, you know what? You are a great person. But what if you do that? What if you do that? So let me give you an example. I was reading something. We were going through some different comments on things and someone's like, oh, that's a sign of a narcissist. Brother said, you can't find another me. And yeah, I actually said that. We were talking about why I didn't notify my wife prior to marrying again. I notified her afterwards. So somebody's like, oh, that's, So I thought about it. I was like, it's all a matter of perspective. We like to throw labels around quite a bit, unfortunately. So we throw this label around of a narcissist. We throw these labels around of, depressed or retarded, all kind of labels really dismissively without thinking about the perspective. Now, if I sit and tell you how I'm an outstanding father and an outstanding husband, and I start running down the different things that I've already demonstrated, not talking about, demonstrate that's visible to others. Well, if I talk about it, that sounds hella egotistical, doesn't it? And it's uncomfortable even talking about it because it sounds like bragging or boasting. But what part of the line is crossed where it's speaking facts about something and having self-confidence, and then now you're egotistical and you're just boasting? Versus when someone else says the exact same things about you. And you may be humble about it. You're grateful for it. You accept the compliment, but you're not going overboard because people, they really don't know. Even you watch this video, you really don't know. You're not in my body or behind the scenes. You can only go on what you see. That's just facts. Now let people know that. You don't fall in love with the celebrity of something. But if you are, you out there taking care of your family. You out there provide for emotional needs. You're out there focusing on your professional and your personal growth. You're being proactive as a father. You're giving a whole lot more than the masses. And the other part is, it's very hard to find similar people in the same area or arena as you that is doing what you're doing and being proactive. See, my mentors told me you don't want to be the top of the 5 people that you hang around with the most. You want to be the lowest so that they can bring you up. If you're the top, then you're teaching everybody else. You want to get in better circles to constantly improve and get better. That, again, mind you, is more about financially, but it applies in other parts of life. But what is that line you cross between being self-confident and strong and understanding and believing in yourself and your ability to do it because you've been demonstrating it? Versus now I say, yeah, you know what? I know I'm a good man. On the flip side, let's talk about women. Well, I know my worth. I'm this, I'm that. I can get this. I deserve that. I don't deserve this, blah, blah, blah. I know what I bring and everything else. No one sees that as something that's being egotistical or boastful. It's like, okay, cool. You have good high self-esteem. You have good self-confidence and so on. You may be delusional in many cases, but I'm just saying. So understanding your perceptions is important. Understanding what's below different perspectives. Maybe a person is simply projecting themselves because they can't see you admitting or believing that you're actually a good person. That's not a reflection of you as a man or a woman. That's a reflection of the person's insecurity and how they feel. That's a sad state indeed. So with that being said, all of these go back to your leadership and your intentionality when it comes to growth. So that's it. Those three things. Understanding where you stand when it comes to your emotional maturation. Understanding leadership when it comes to children and when you're building in polygyny and you're expanding your family. And the third is to understand perspectives. Sometimes it's just best to be quiet on something. Allow a person to wallow in their own stuff, because if you go down to that level, they'll beat you there because they've been there a whole lot longer. And we have very little time left. Even if you live 100 years from now, it'll still be like the snap of a finger. So with that, I'm Coach Nazir. I help people get their shift together. And I want you to be outstanding, because average is nothing but the top of the bottom or the bottom of the top. Assalamu alaikum. Peace. Here are 3 ways outstanding personal relationships can help you.
Make sure you guys are following us on our social medias at Outstanding Personal Relationships on YouTube and Facebook, and on IG at Outstanding Relationships, and also Clubhouse under our names.
And make sure you go to outstandingpersonalrelationships.com and sign up for our email list. And there you will get updates on our new book, Let's Talk Polygyny Uncensored.
Absolutely. And last but not least, when it comes to coaching or counseling, if you want to work with us one-on-one or in group settings, make sure you're on that website and reach out to us, because we do have very limited spots and we usually have a wait list. So with that being said, GLC.
Make sure you are growing intentionally,
loving fearlessly,
and connecting on a higher level every single day. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.